Everyone. We'll get started in about a minute or two, and then we'll get to it. All right, Craig, we're just going to go ahead and get started for the sake of time. I want to make sure that, oops, 1 second. All right, so thank you everybody for taking the time to attend our webinar today with FST. We're going to be talking about logistics and all the fun things to it. Before I introduce Craig, and kind of before he does the presentation, I kind of want to talk about more on who I am and who CIFT is. CIFT, my name is Kareem Hamuda. I'm the Small Business Program Manager at CIFT. And then my colleague, Natalie Gunther, who is not on this call, but more of attending the call, is our NOC Operational Specialist. We are a nonprofit organization that's Northwest Ohio's MEP partner. So MEP means Manufacturing Extension Partnership. And we are a sub-recipient and partner of the Ohio Department of Development as well as the federal networks. We are dedicated to helping Ohio manufacturers and food processors scale and compete through innovative solutions. And, over the years, this is our 30th year, which is kind of exciting, and 20th year for the NOC program. It's been a pleasure and honor to help a lot of small business in Ohio. Some of the things that we do as an organization is we help with food safety, product development, process engineering, smart manufacturing, and then including with our small business program, we provide kitchen facilities such as the NOC as a launch pad, as a space where you can produce your product for wholesale. We also provide technical solutions ranging from e-commerce all the way to connecting with retailers. And then I also want to mention a little bit about the NOC as it's its 20th anniversary. It's not just a kitchen, it's a launchpad for emerging brands. It's the only Ohio third-party audited commercial facility in the state. And it features 3 different variations of kitchen spaces, which is a general food processing, canning line, and a prep kitchen. And these are some of our past and present companies that we've worked with through the program, which is kind of exciting. And then, as I mentioned, in addition to our kitchen facility, these are some of the services that we do help. And really, it's just a phone call. So even if you have an idea or you're just kind of stuck before Googling it, just Google CIFT and we'll try to get an answer. If we don't know the answer, we'll kind of connect you to the expertise in that field. And then I do want to highlight some of our partners. We couldn't get where we are today without them. So SFA is a Special Food Association. We are also partnered up with the Ohio Proud program through the Ohio Department of Agriculture, Jobs Ohio, the MBAC Minority Business Center, and then as well as we are connected with the various kitchens across the state to help position better the CBG emerging companies in Ohio. And then last but not least, these are some of our programs coming up in 2026. So we do have another webinar coming up in January, in which the announcement will probably come early January or kind of late December on what that topic will be. We also are planning to have an in-person event at our kitchen called Hot Sauce Night. And then we are hosting a spring food and beverage showcase at our kitchen in April. And then we are also planning a community-wide open house in June at our kitchen. So this is our kind of our credentials, and then feel free to message me personally if you have any questions. And if you have time, be sure to go to YouTube and watch our Where Ideas Meet Reality. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce Craig Loughlin. He is a senior sales manager at FST Logistics. Craig has been a kind of an advocate of emerging brands. We recently connected a couple months ago on kind of what he does on that standpoint. I've worked with FST, oh gosh, probably almost a year, probably a little longer than a year now. They are members of CIFT, CIFT's consortium. And together, we try to help identify issues and problems, not only just logistics, but also as a team effort, how we can collaborate and provide solutions to the industry. Craig, you can go ahead and take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you, Kareem. And thank you, everybody, for making some time to join us today. I'm super excited to be a part of this and to be working with CIFT. Was lucky enough to attend the lunch in last month, and I just think it's a really cool organization, and some of the initiatives that I have been learning about are really interested and focused on what the members need. So even just in the time that Kareem and I have been communicating, some of his asks have changed pretty significantly based on the needs of the members. And I hope to be one of those resources that you come to when those questions come up. Kareem had mentioned Specialty Food Association. There was a time in my career that when you clicked the button on the specialty food website to ask for help with shipping something, it emailed straight to me. So I do have some good experience with emerging brands, and I'm familiar with some of the questions and headaches that come up with trying to scale a brand, and hope to dive into some of that today. At any time, if there's questions that pop up, I know Kareem is going to be monitoring the chat, so please feel free to throw in any questions. Kareem, if you feel like there's something that we should dive into, I won't be offended at all to stop and dive into those things. So I want to be flexible. And like I said, I want to be a resource for everybody that's on the call here today. And I really hope that this is something that's valuable and beneficial to everybody here. So a little bit about who FST is. We are headquartered right here in Columbus, Ohio. We've been in business since 1991. And one of the big differentiators that I think is really important to talk about with our business, we are 100% employee owned. That is something that I see truly across the business. We have initiatives to connect with the community. Both our corporate headquarters up in Dublin on the north side of Ohio. I'm currently sitting in our warehouse campus in Columbus on the south side. We are committed to both communities. We sponsor a park. We do street cleanups. We work with the food banks in both sections of the city. And then it's really cool. We also have connected some of the brands that we work with the food banks. So yesterday, I actually saw 24 pallets staged in our warehouse going to the Mid-Ohio Food Bank. And at this time of year, it couldn't be better timing. So it's just, I think it's a really awesome and makes me feel really proud to be a part of the organization, and it's something that I noticed from day one working here. So what does FST do? The question was, when should you start working with a 3PL? And that is a loaded question. There are, just thinking about FST, we third-party logistics, there are 4 different parts of our business that could be considered to be a third-party logistics relationship. With traditional warehousing, we have 5 warehouses here in Columbus. We just opened a 6th in Fort Worth, Texas earlier this year, and we have plans to expand into the West and Salt Lake City, Utah. So currently we have over 1.5 million square feet of space, all food grade, across those 6 warehouses. Over 175 dock doors, between 15 and 58 per location. Our freight consolidation program, this is a retail forward and focused program that is a refrigerated, rides 33 to 38 degrees and covers the entire country. I've worked in logistics and lived in Columbus for well over a decade. And before I joined FST, I thought FST was a regional refrigerated carrier. Um, our number two state for deliveries is California. So boy, was I incorrect there. And we truly are covering coast to coast. Every week we send out over 3 million pounds of food and beverage products to deliver to retailers all across the country, hitting over 15 Walmart POs every day. We have a special program for Target, but we're also delivering into some of the regional retailers, including Giant Eagle, Giant, Kroger in their various names as they continue to expand, Meyer, and quite literally every retailer, food service provider, and food distributor in the country. Our logistics team is another, what I've always thought of traditionally as third-party logistics. That is our team that sits up in Dublin. And for moves that don't necessarily fit into the consolidation program, the logistics team works hand in hand with our brands, both in and out of food and beverage. But earlier this year, the logistics department had an upgrade in the system that we use and went through and updated personally over 25 unique locations to confirm all the information we need, especially when we're delivering into retail food and bev. You know, what are the parameters? What are the hours? How do we schedule? Are there preferred carriers for LTL? Are there windows? Do they drop trailers? Are they live unload? All of these things are what goes into making an on-time delivery successful over and over again. And our team is very dialed in to making that happen. And then e-commerce. E-commerce is something that I think with the evolution of business and this thing called the internet, that most every brand, when they reach some kind of maturity, has e-commerce to a degree. And we are servicing e-commerce out of every single one of our warehouses, and many of those are tied to partners that are in our warehouse. I'll dive into each one of these individually a little bit later, but if there's questions that you have or things that you might be curious about, I would love to hear about those as they come up. So one of the questions that we want to talk about, what is the difference, and something that I've gotten repeatedly from emerging brands, is what is the difference between logistics and distribution? And then beyond that, what is the difference between a logistics provider and a food distributor? And again, I feel like the topics that we have today are just riddled with questions that I could spend 90 minutes unpacking any of, and this is definitely one of those. But the key difference, I think, is logistics being how your product gets delivered, and distributors offering a platform for your product to be purchased. Now, depending on the logistics company and the distributor that you're working with, some of those specialties are going to have a pretty wide range of outcomes of where they're working with their clientele and where they're going to offer the best value to you. And I think one of the big things for brands to be dialed into is what those specializations are when you're talking with a distributor and when you're talking with a third-party logistics provider. Now, and also, um, I was at the Columbus Pizza Expo. Kareem and I were just talking about this a few minutes ago. It was a phenomenal event that occurred a few weeks ago right here in Columbus. And it was a really good look into how distributors are working within that section of the food and beverage business. Because I was talking with a non-alcoholic beverage company that attended the show. They are not located in Ohio, and they're trying to break into Ohio. So they don't have the on the ground boots to be selling into individual pizza shops. And also, one could argue that's not a great use of their time calling for relatively small orders over and over and over again. So they naturally go to distributors to sell into these pizza shops. Now, within that, I had a great conversation with one of their sales reps who manages the Midwest, and she said part of the issue that she struggles with is how do you know where you rank with the distributor, and are they actually selling your product or is it being offered? And there's a huge difference between pushing a SKU and having a SKU available to purchase. So then asking about what is the difference? Is a distributor when is a distributor pushing and selling your product and truly selling it and letting their customers and hopefully your customers know about why they should be buying this product? A lot of times we see that comes through a paid partnership or through a product that is truly an innovative product that excites the seller at the distributor enough to want to push that product because they feel like it will drive sales. If you aren't in a paid partnership and have a product that isn't necessarily a groundbreaking, challenging, innovative product, which most are trying to supplant another product, then you have to rely on your own sales team to a certain degree to create the awareness and let your customer base and future customer base know where they will be able to purchase your products. Similarly, on the 3PL side, you want to make sure that you're working with a 3PL that is working with the places that you are and the places that you want to be. If that is on the warehousing side, if that's on the transportation side, if that's in a consolidation program, or if that's in an e-commerce model, all of those, any one of those divisions, you want to make sure that they are able to support what you're doing now, but then also as you continue to grow your business, that they have the systems in place that are able to support your business as the asks become greater in number and most likely also in complexity. Now, some of the limitations that you'll have are geographic footprint. Studied geography in college. I think it's a fascinating subject. It is really fabric that ties our lives together, but that's for another time. What is the geographic footprint that you can service from both sides, from your logistics provider, from your warehouse, or from your distributor? And is that matching your customer model? And do you potentially have to find a complementary service or a different service to fully complete your goals? It goes back to this question: how do you know when you're ready to partner with a 3PL? The number one note I have written down here: this is a loaded question because it truly is. The answer, I think, depends on your business strategy and your growth phase. Because, and what section of what kind of a 3PL? From a transportation perspective, I never think it's too early to have a conversation with a third-party logistics provider. Anytime you're having a conversation with a retailer, you should be talking with a transportation provider, regardless of where your product is being held, where it's being produced, how it's being produced. That is all secondary when it comes to that delivery into a retailer. You need to make sure that you're working with somebody that understands how to deliver into that retailer and has familiarity. But then also, a lot of retailers, when you're in an early conversation about getting in, one of the first questions is, are we going to pick up the product or are you going to deliver the product to us? And I fully realize the position that I sit in and who signs my paychecks, and what I'm about to say isn't completely objective, but I genuinely think that brands are best served to control the transportation themselves rather than having a retailer come in to pick it up for a couple of reasons. One, it's generally going to be a new relationship and you need it to go well. There's a ton of competition to stay on the shelf at any retailer. And one of the first things that retailers look at is delivery metrics and performance. So if you are consistently delivering on time and getting on the shelf, that's a great first start. Not to say that in a pickup relationship that won't happen, but you don't have quite as many, what I like to say, like ringing the alarm bell, um, to ask for more help, or if there's a delay in, let's say you have a delay in production, or the order isn't picked in time. If you are in a CPU relationship where that vendor is coming in to pick that product up and it is not ready exactly when it needs to be, a lot of times that will come back on you in a negative way. Whereas if you have a third party that is working directly for you, you are just changing the parameters of that pickup. And as long as you're being good at communicating with your partner, there really shouldn't be an issue to get in for that pickup. Now, scheduling and transit times are always going to be a factor as well. But I do think you have a little bit more control. And that's something that I like. And that's a big part of I think brand success, is having control over the brand as much as possible and being able to get a quick answer. And if you need to pivot, being able to have the control to make that pivot. Another thing that I think that kind of brought up when I asked a lot of people, when are companies ready for a 3PL? I got a lot of different answers. Things like when the product can't fit in your garage anymore, it's probably time to look for another warehouse. When you're making too many trips to the post office, it's probably time to look at an e-com solution. Um, when you're spending, but ultimately, all these different little anecdotes, when you're focusing too much time not on the core area of your business, that is when it's time to talk to a 3PL. Regardless, if it's warehousing, if it's e-com, again, I think transportation, literally from day zero, you should be having these conversations. But that's when you thought like if you are producing, if you're in a food production company, you should be focusing on producing and selling food. Packing boxes for e-commerce is going to be a part of that for a certain part of your growth, but to truly scale and be a healthy, growing business and go the places that you want to, I think you have to turn to some specialists at some point. And it's going to be different for every brand, but what I found is that the more people I ask and the more different answers that I got, the common theme is when you are spending too much time outside of the core area of how you grow your business, that's when you turn to a specialist. And I think it makes a ton of sense. So, how do you prepare if you're going to speak with a specialist? It's data. Data is always going to be the key, and the earlier that you can kind of hone in and understand your data, even just gathering data with as many points as possible, not knowing where you might need that, but setting future you up for success by keeping your data somewhat orderly and detailed as much as possible. Because when you go to meet with the 3PL, you're going to want to talk about forecasts. You're going to want to talk about your historic data, what you've done, but then also, what is your growth plan and how does your historic data relate to where you think you could be in 6 months or a year or 2 years or 3 years? And we've seen, especially in the food and beverage world, when a brand takes off, it is a rocket ship. And especially when they are innovative brands that are disrupting categories or creating new categories, the growth is something that we just don't see in other areas of retail. The production, a lot of times when it gets ramped up, it can get ramped up very fast. And, it's just about can we get the ingredients? Can we get the time on the line? Can we get the packaging? And you have to have all that in line before you can commit to greater order sizes. But ultimately, knowing what you've done, having a good idea of the volume, the cadence, and what the ask is and any kind of regularity, but then also any kind of irregularity, all of this is good data that's going to help you to be able to have an honest and straightforward conversation with your 3PL. And ultimately, hopefully, you can identify some targets for what you're hoping to get from that 3PL relationship. You know, can you use them as a resource? Are they doing things that you haven't done yet for other brands? That's typically things that I would be trying to ask. But then also when you have an idea of how you want to grow your business, and now this is more of a conversation about channels than anything else, that should frame how you want to have those conversations with the 3PL. Now, if you're looking for a 3PL, I mentioned FST has 4 different ways you could interact with us as a 3PL. Um, there are companies that specialize in each one of those four. If you're trying to find somebody that you want to do all of those things, we are a partner that can help kind of guide that. If you say right now we're in retail, but we're trying to grow in e-com or vice versa, just understanding what your path is. Maybe you can find a partner who can help give you some idea for where they've seen other brands succeed or struggle along the way in a similar growth trajectory. Data points. Again, said I was going to talk a lot about data. Here are some ideas of the type of data that I think is helpful to be tracking. The order details. When do you get the order? When is it due? Who is it going to? How much is it? How much does it weigh? How much did you pay? How much lead time did you have? But ultimately, one of the most important things I think for food and beverage brands to know, did it deliver on time? That's what I've heard historically over the last decade plus is that over 2/3 of retail buyers will kick a brand out for not delivering on time repeatedly. And ultimately, you need the product on the shelf to sell it and to get into a customer's hands. And it's something that gets taken very, very seriously by retail buyers. And I think one really interesting way that this has impacted us as a consumer is when you look at online shopping. I think in the last 5 years, many people have dabbled either permanently or part-time in Instacart or whatever online shopper you choose. But what happens when a product's not on the shelf? And that is something that's called involuntary substitution. And yes, you can list out what you would like them to substitute, but ultimately, if you're consistently ordering a full grocery order through an online portal, it is quite the task to every item put what the substitution is. So years ago, I put in an order myself, and one of the items that I wanted was tater tots. Now, I personally prefer the Alexia makes a delightful salt and pepper tater tot. It's just a lightly seasoned traditional tater tot. Unfortunately, they were not on the shelf. So when this shopper went to purchase the product and didn't find it, they are left with three choices. They could get a different SKU from the same brand. They could get a similar flavor from a different brand, or they could buy nothing. Ultimately, they chose to buy a different product from the same brand. And while I do love the Alexia brand's tots, my, at the time, 5-year-old was not impressed that we got sweet potato tots and not regular tater tots. Um, Wildly different decision making though. And I can't say any of those decisions is truly wrong. Like I would have been upset if I didn't get any tater tots, but like so think about from that perspective, this is happening every single day at every retailer all across the country, that there are third-party shoppers going at a time of third-party logistics I didn't even talk about, that's going in every single day and not finding the product on the shelf. So you put yourself at such a competitive advantage just by being available to be purchased. Anybody who's ever ordered bananas online has maybe also gotten one, or one time I've gotten one banana. One time I also got 5 bunches of bananas. So you never really know and how you're ordering. Kareem, hop in.
What I can say is I've that happened to me before, and I felt like a winner if I got more than what I paid for. Like if I got 10 bunches of bananas, sweet, I can make banana muffins and eat bananas and make banana oatmeal. It's a win. With this, but for the tater tots, it's a very interesting perspective. Only because on the retailer side, you mentioned it before, they kick people out, and real estate and merchandising is going to just being a more limited. It went from 4 to 2 to now 1. So it's very interesting perspective at that point.
Well, and then another factor of that too, like Kroger, their home grocery delivery is revolutionary to where they have their own warehouses that are not retail locations. And I think it's really interesting how Kroger is going after the Food Lion business down in the South. And they opened this huge DC, I want to say in North Carolina, and they're not opening retail stores. It's just to go after this online grocery, which even puts less of an emphasis on being in the physical store. But boy, is it frustrating when you go into the store and they don't have the product you want.
Yep.
But either way, I think delivering on time, regardless of the brand, regardless of the retailer, is probably the most important thing with maintaining your good relationships, apart from having a good product that's selling and all of that kind of baseline information. The thing that I think gets taken for granted is the ability to deliver on time and finding a valuable partner that can help you do that. So go back. When do you know when you're ready? So if you've got good data and you understand what you need to ask from your 3PL and how that 3PL can help you, when do you know when you're ready to go to a 3PL? It goes back to what I was just talking about, your growth strategy and how do you plan to achieve that? What channel are you trying to go through? And this isn't just when you're ready, but also what to look for in a 3PL. Are they doing the things that you are doing now and the things that you want to be doing, have they helped customers to do to do exactly what you're trying to do? And what does it look like when you go? What's the feeling that you get when you work with them? Are they reliable? Are they flexible? Have they dealt with changing and possibly extremely volatile volumes? Because any growing brand does have issues with order cadence or production issues or quality issues, these things that no brand, it's going to pop up eventually because that is just the nature of business. And how flexible are they? Are they used to these things? Is there a degree of rigidity that you can't seem to overcome? But then one of the things that kind of also popped out when we talk about like, when are you ready? A lot of brands have a founder who drives the brand growth. And at some point, to truly grow the brand, the founder mentality can't extend to as you're hiring employees and they are employees. That founder mentality isn't something that's necessarily going to be in all your employees. Now, yes, culture can solve some of that and make people want to work harder and buy in, but as you, the founder, can't put that passion into every aspect of your business, finding good partners that understand what it takes to succeed and can be straightforward with their communication, I think is kind of how you extend that founder mentality out. Because it's very difficult. And one of the things that I hear a lot of times from brands, founders, is that's kind of where they struggle is that passion as they continue to grow their team. How do you keep that passion? And nobody's going to be as passionate as the person who founds the business, especially if their name's on the bottle. Um, but that's just something that when you're continuing to grow and when you're finding the right partners, that's kind of this idea that when you're not, again, I go back to it, when you're not focusing on the core areas of your business that you need to make it grow, that's when you need to find a good 3PL that can help you with some of those things. Transportation. Again, how do you know when you're ready? You should be having these conversations on what I said is day zero. But then if you're already moving some freight around, what are you doing that's working? How is your partner and your transportation provider working with you? But when you're exploring transportation 3PLs, what kind of mode are you anticipating to move more LTL? Are you anticipating to move more truckload? What do you anticipate the order sizes to be? What retailers do you plan to sell into? And those are some of the things that when you have a good understanding of that information, then you can look for a 3PL and ask about those differentiators. Now, I mentioned earlier consolidation is one of the aspects and one of the divisions at FST. For a company that's shipping LTL, producing in Ohio, and breaking into retail, that should check a lot of boxes about where it would make sense to look at a division like that. One of the other things that I think is really important when we talk about compliance with retailers and where a 3PL is going to help is, do they have an understanding? Does a transportation 3PL have an understanding of what it takes to deliver into the places that you are delivering into? UNFI, pretty famous in the food and beverage world, is notorious for having just brutally terrible appointments overnight. 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. is pretty standard. So where drivers, like most people, prefer to deliver during more regular business hours. And while trucks are always moving on the road and freight truly does never sleep, it would be great to not always deliver late at night and having an understanding, like if you're delivering LTL into UNFI, there are some carriers that drop trailers there. But then when they drop trailers, are they dropping trailers there when the trailer gets full? Are they dropping trailers there several days a week? Or do they have a standing live appointment? And if they do have a standing live appointment for that overnight appointment or not? And those are just kind of basic questions that you should be understanding when going into different retailers and having some of these conversations. And again, I'll say it again, a 3PL that has good knowledge and good understanding for delivering into these places should be a resource for you to help get a better understanding for how to succeed here. Also, understanding kind of how the freight flows. in kind of a traditional hub and spoke LTL model. If I had something that was moving, say, from Columbus to Atlanta, Georgia, it would, in a traditional LTL hub and spoke model, companies like Old Dominion, FedEx, Estes, it would pick up in Columbus and then go kind of to different break terminals along the way where it's always kind of moving in the right direction, but it will get touched and unloaded a few different times, maybe from here down to like Louisville. And then in Louisville, some of the freight will get splintered out, they'll get put on a new truck, as opposed to if we're shipping that with our consolidation model, we would load it in Columbus, take it all the way to Atlanta and deliver it. Um, and just understanding kind of what that model is and how that operates and how that's going to impact your product, your in your transit time and how those deliveries are being handled. So all conversations that, again, by having a good partner that understands how you can interact with some of these retailers, you can get a little bit more value out of those relationships. Similarly, on the warehouse side, there's a wide range of providers, but I think knowing the specialty of what that provider does and where kind of some of the other customers that they're currently working with, I think is a huge part for brands. Um, Kind of at a baseline, is the warehouse clean? These are kind of very basic things to look for, but is it clean? Is it organized? How do they report? Is it organized both from the product on the floor, but also I talked a lot about data earlier. What kind of data can they give you, and what kind of reporting is it? Can you get real-time inventory? Is it going to be a trailing report? Do they have anything in place to potentially catch things proactively? What have they done with other customers? I'm going to keep asking this because it's a question that every brand should be asking their providers. How have you helped a brand that's like mine, that's not me? Um, but I saw this on LinkedIn the other day actually as well, where it was one of the questions was, how do you know if your warehouse, how do you know if the warehouse is a good fit for you? And it's this like, is the warehouse clean? And one of the questions is like, go to the bathroom and look to see if the bathroom's clean. And somebody commented, that just means they hired a janitor, um, which is a great point. But I think like this, when I talk about this picture is one of our warehouses. Um, it is clean. There's no debris on the ground. The freight is orderly. I would ask questions about how you're managing the inventory. What do the turns look like? Do you have space for me now and where I'm going to be? One of the aspects of growth, especially in the warehouse side, is like generally you're going to be committed to a certain footprint or pallet count that you're committed to, and you'll have minimums. But we've talked a lot about growth and scaling, and does that 3PL have room for you to grow with that footprint? Can that footprint expand? Or as your velocity picks up, can they handle an increased amount of business just with greater turns in that same footprint? So, and that's going to be different depending on the brand, depending on the retailers, your order sizes, your order cadence, your order volume. All that together is going to go into obviously how quickly this freight is going to turn and how complex the orders are. But some good questions that I think you could ask when you're looking at a potential warehouse, not just the space they have on the floor, how much appointment availability is there? I have to think it's one of the most difficult pills to swallow for a brand to have the product in the warehouse, to have a customer that wants to buy the product, and the warehouse can't pick and ship the product out for you. Now, to me, that should be something that's kind of automatic that like your partner should be able to work with you, but that's not always the case. So, do they have availability of appointments? Are they typically booked 100%? Do they run multiple shifts? You might have seen my main man Deontay back here driving the forklift behind me. He's working 11 to 7 today. We have standard shifts. We have first shift, second shift, third shift, but then we also have some swing shifts to accommodate some of those peak hours. Um, and different warehouses are going to handle that differently, but that's something that I think is important to know as a brand. Um, is overtime an option? We see this a lot too. If there's a brand that's pushing out a lot of product, we'll see it here in a couple weeks with end of the month, and we'll certainly see it at the end of December with end of the year. Just trying to push out more product, and we get the question is, can we pay overtime to get more product out? That's something that we ask when we're shipping out of third-party warehouses that aren't ours. That's one of the questions that we will ask of our own warehouse is what kind of additional labor can we get in if it's needed. But you want to have that flexibility with your partners that if you need to ask for something more, hopefully going in and understanding what that looks like. Is that actually feasible? Has this happened before? Again, is this something you've done for your other customers, or is this going to be an ask that is unique and you don't really get and are not prepared to execute on? Or a project something that you are very familiar with and are doing very regularly. And an ask like that is still extra, but not necessarily an out of the regular that kind of ask. Next, we're going to talk about e-commerce. I'm going to get a drink real quick. So again, a lot of the same questions about knowing your own business when you're going into a 3PL e-commerce conversation. How are you packing? How often? Products, there's a lot of products that we see, especially in food and beverage, that needs temperature considerations at certain times of the year. Chocolate, we worry about blooming, so it can't get too hot or too cold. We see that with a lot of candy as well, that I've talked to some brands that don't ship certain products over the summer because they don't feel like they have a good refrigerated partner. Boy, I'd love to tell them that our program runs at 33 to 39 degrees. Um, but if you're in an ecom program, that's not going to help you. If you're in an ecom program, you have to have packaging that works within that box. So are those ice packs? Are those gel packs? Is there something in there that we've worked with another customer potentially? Again, same thing. You've probably heard me say 6 times already. You should be asking your potential providers and your current providers how they've addressed this with other brands because they may have some ideas that you haven't considered as well. But if you have seasonality either to how your product is sold throughout the year or how it is handled throughout the year, those are huge call outs that your 3PL should be aware of and prepared to execute on. If it is with how it is handled, that's typically just an extra step with physically packing the orders into the box. And we just have to have that extra equipment in here. If it's a seasonality of sales and you're expecting a jump in sales, then we want to make sure that your customer experience is consistent and there could be a conversation about like, do we need to bring in additional people or are we comfortable if we have too many orders coming in, then we can process throughout the normal what we have allotted. Do we want to change that or is that just kind of a resetting of the customer expectation that this might take a little bit longer? And some brands choose to communicate that to the customers, some brands don't. Some brands like to or advertise kind of how quickly you're going to get the product from when you order it. So brands like that are going to be more likely to ask us, what do we need to do to fulfill these orders in X amount of time, sometimes days, sometimes hours. Um, and then this last question on here is I think a really good one when we talk about growth. What do you wish you had the capability to do? What are you not doing now that you wish you could do? And kind of why? Is that something that is because of your own limitations, because of your customers, because of just the stage of growth with your company? Is it because your providers are limiting you? Especially on the e-commerce side, I think some of the projects I've seen since I joined FST are some of the most impressive, to be totally honest. Right now, what we have going on, we have a couple brands that are doing advent calendars, and we have two different people that asked us about it, and we created them previously. That's what we did in October and November, and then both brands were able to add the advent calendar as a normal SKU to be purchased through their normal e-com platforms. So just like if you're going to order your normal variety pack, now you can click to add the advent calendar in there and everything's flowing through the normal processes. And then for our team, when they're packing the orders, it's just one more item that's on the box or that's in the exactly this thing behind me, actually, these racks behind me. It's just one more row with one SKU in it that's only going to be there during that period of promotion. So we have two customers that are doing that right now. And then as soon as that ends, um, we have next Friday is Black Friday for anybody who's not aware. And We actually have a customer that is so dialed into their e-com customer performance. We have a team coming in on Black Friday to pack orders in real time. So as the orders come in, our team will be processing and packing the orders, and they'll be ready to go out. Phenomenal. I think a phenomenal move for the customer experience.
Hey, Craig,
And yeah,
real quick, so when it comes to e-commerce, are these like on some of the work that you guys do, are these mainly to consumers or is it like is it B2C or do you are there different obviously there's different platforms that when you say e-commerce, not only a main website, can it be other third-party platforms like Faire or Walmart Marketplace? And then also lightly touch on it, but like TikTok Shop. So like those type of e-commerce platforms of how influential or influenced led marketplaces that have those type of deals and get them that fast. Are those platforms using 3PL, or is it mainly the brand that has their kind of things uh, fixed up correctly?
it's like you looked at my notes, Kareem.
Hey, I don't know what. Sorry, I didn't know.
No, no, I love it. I love it. I'm 40, so I'm not like super familiar with TikTok. Everybody makes fun of me in the office and calls me old, but no, TikTok Shop is like actually one of the more fascinating arenas that people are purchasing product because it happened seemingly overnight. Um, and now you have the joke is like people's parents are ordering. When I asked about it in the office, several people are like, "Oh yeah, my mom orders stuff from TikTok Shop all the time." So it's quite literally not just the youths that are ordering there. But it's yes. In short, some of those companies are using third-party providers. Some of those companies are bringing all that product in. Like we've delivered product for some of our customers into TikTok Shop directly, and then they're handling that. We do have other customers that set up their platform so that when the order comes in through different e-com platforms, it just drops directly to us. So short answer, yes. Long answer, kind of. It really just depends with kind of what that ask is and how you're getting set up with those vendors. Again, when I go back to having the conversation with the transportation aspect, immediately when you start being in these conversations, it's things like this too. It's how you're fulfilling your product. Some retailers are going to give you more flexibility. Some retailers are just going to purchase your product and they're going to run e-com as if you're ordering it from them directly. So, and that's generally the larger retailers are going to take that product in and own the whole process, hoping to capture other orders along the way. Like for a Walmart, say, Walmart's hoping that you don't just order the one SKU that you're looking for, but that you get maybe tempted by some other products on their website and they can sell you some other stuff along the way. Whereas like an Instagram store or TikTok shop is going to be more of that like diamond in the rough. Here is the product that I'm searching. So to kind of hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It's just because e-commerce from my side is by far the number one of the number one things that people call me for is just e-commerce, and it's so broad. I mean, as a subject, that what does that define as? Um, and it's just a learning curve, really, not only for me but for everybody else.
Well, it's interesting because like similar to that, different retailers will ask for what we would call retail kitting. Like a lot of the big box, um, like Sam's Club, Costco, the subscription type stores, they like to have their own SKU. If that's maybe it's a flavor, maybe it's a combination pack that's not offered somewhere else, maybe it's a different count. I was at my local Sam's Club the other day and I saw a variety pack of protein bars that were two flavors and had 13 bars in the pack. And I don't understand how they came up with 13. Like, why would you have seven of one and six of the other? But um, I don't know. But you do see different retailers are asking for very unique things. Exclusivity is very big in the retail world. So we do have a customer that sells into TJ Maxx. And I always thought TJ Maxx order just got like short dated product that couldn't be sold at other stores. And some of it is that, but TJ Maxx also asks for special things from some brands that they can offer in their store that others don't. So we have one customer that sells a two-pack into Marshalls and TJ Maxx both that we have a line that some, I think once a week, they take a chocolate and a vanilla and they put them in there together, and that just they're that's all we're doing is just packing that retail. Again, we would call kitting. It is a kit specifically to go to that retailer. It's turnkey. They put it right on the shelf, and that's the box that they sell. But from a production standpoint, it is not economical for them to ask their co-man to start dropping one chocolate and one vanilla into this pack. Keep firing out the chocolate, keep firing out the vanilla. We will take that in here. We will manage that, and then we create those builds for the retailers. We see that all the time. Again, especially when you get into the big box stores, the club stores, they want something different that you can't get somewhere else. And it's not always just to get more of something. We do see some brand or some stores ask for a totally different product. Uh, was talking one time with somebody that worked with, I believe it was Sam's Club, and he had a customer that made brownies, and they were having pretty good success selling them. Sam's Club came back and said, "We do pretty well with your brownie. I think it was a 2 pound. It was just like a 2 pound brownie. It was just like a massive brownie. They're like, it does pretty well, but you sell this everywhere. We want something that's more exclusive. Tell us what you can come up with." So they came back, and the brand met with a advisor to help with things like this. And the brand said, "We had our R&D team look into it. We met. We have decided we are going to roll out a 3 pound brownie, which is just a bigger brownie." And it makes sense with the club stores. But the special or the consultant said, "What if we take your 2 pound brownie and cut it up? And now we call those brownie bites." So this product that a lot of us know was really put into the retail arena by trying to innovate and have a new SKU special for some of these club stores. What really all it involved was cutting the product up. And now we wouldn't cut that product up, but sometimes it's not that big of a change. It's how you're packing the product, how you're presenting the product. I know there's a product that I currently buy at my local Sam's that's just it's a variety pack of just smaller versions of the full size, and it's great for my household. But they're not like that brand isn't doing anything differently. They sell these minis on their own. They're just packing them into 9 packs and then putting them together and selling them at Sam's Club. So Sam's Club gets this retailer exclusivity, but then as a consumer, you're only going to get that by going there. But it also allows you to try some different products sometimes, especially if you have permanent placement in the store. And let's say you have 4 SKUs, and 3 of them are your flagship, and then this one you can rotate out or maybe try out some new ones. It's a different way to innovate and try out some product and get some feedback from your customers. Um, and and then from like an actual operations perspective, we would be holding all those SKUs in the warehouse, and then when you get those different builds, it's a different conversation with your 3PL warehouse for how they're going to pack these products and what do we need to do to make that work, and how scalable is this, and is it something that we can do? Scalability, I think, is kind of why we're all here. And I started to get into a little bit of the channels that you want to scale through and how you want to scale. And I fully understand some of this is not what you probably expect to hear from a transportation and warehouse provider, but it's ultimately how we're both going to be successful. And what information can you get from your providers to help arm yourself to continue to scale and meet the goals that you have. Um, I talked earlier that I think one of the big aspects of success in delivering into retail is the ability to deliver on time. Um, if you can deliver on time consistently, that does generally help to get you longer and more permanent placement on the shelf. But you can also take that data, and there's this phenomenon that I like to call rival retailer envy. If you are in retailer X and you want to get in retailer Y, you should be using your data from retailer X in all your conversations with retailer Y. This is a product that's driving the category. I'm outselling my competitors in this category. I have customers that are going to your competitor to buy my product because it's not offered in your store. And anything you can do to show how you're performing against your competition in retailer Y is going to help you with retailer X. Also, retail buyers frequently shop at their competitors' stores. They want to know what their competitors are doing, how they're innovating, what products they're looking at, because they don't want to hear that there is a brand that is doing very well at their competitor, especially when we see how brand loyal some people can be, excuse me, when looking at how brands transition into retail from e-com. I think that's a newer phenomenon that we've seen the last few years with the growth of things like TikTok Shop in the Instagram store, is that especially for people in more rural areas of the country or smaller cities that are not the first place that innovative food and bev brands typically place their product, it's a great avenue to start getting to experience this product that you otherwise wouldn't, because you're beholden to your rural retail buyers' preferences. But now, when you can start to drive some of this differently, and you do have customers in more parts of the country, and you do have some of this retail expansion, yes, you are potentially sacrificing what's traditionally been an e-com sale to retrain that customer to maybe move to retail, but you're going to drive those retail sales and ultimately help to frame those conversations with your retail buyers. And some customers are never going to want to change. Like, they're always going to want to stay in the channel that you have them in, and that's totally fine. But just understanding where you're going to grow, where you see that growth coming, and what you think is going to drive that, I think is a huge differentiator for how you choose your partners. Especially then when we also think about, are you going to be rolling out new SKUs? Do you need to look at new co-mans? Are they going to be able to do that? I recently talked with a potato chip company that talked to me about their exciting line of gummy snacks. So those products are wildly different with how they're being produced and how they're being sold and how they're being transported. And having the understanding of that and what partners you need to be successful with those different SKUs, with those different retailers, different geographic regions, all of that coming in together to making sure that you truly have an understanding of what your provider is able to help you with. So I'm coming to the end of my presentation here, and I'm really excited to hear if there's any questions. But one thing I want to talk about on the subject of scalability is a customer of ours called Jordan Skinny Mixes. So Jordan Skinny Mixes is a brand of mixers that I believe all of them are no calorie. And it's meant to go into coffee. There's some that it's like a margarita mix. There are some that are like a slushy or more of a traditional, like a snow cone topping. So they have a very wide range of products, and they found they had well, I talked earlier about the customer experience. They found their average time from order to it being shipped, not received, was a week. We were able to cut that down to a day. So now even orders going out all the way to California, which could take 4 or 5 days through standard express post that the customer chooses, now those are still arriving before they would have ever been picked. And for customers that are closer, that time is getting cut down by 2 or 3x. Apart from the speed of how quickly this product is now getting to the customers, our team is making a fraction of the mistakes that the previous team was doing, and they're doing 3 times the amount of sales. And that's not just because they have a more well-rounded e-com, but I think it goes into when I talk about focus on the things that help to grow your business and find a specialist for the areas that don't. finding somebody that's able to help go turn what was a stressor and a potential liability into a strength can really transform your business and take a load off of your plate that has been taking an undue amount of your time, energy, and stress. And then this note on here: successfully filled 5x normal volumes during peak holiday peak. This might be the people that are asking us to come in on Black Friday. Um, this is truly a commitment to their customers. All of this is a commitment to improving the customer experience and making sure that their products get to their customers faster and more accurately than ever before. And the result is a higher degree of customer loyalty and company growth, which is what I think every brand is looking for. So, in a couple weeks, I'd like to invite anybody on this call and anybody who's not that might be interested to come on down to Grove City and see the FST warehouse. Zach Hancock, our COO, will be giving a tour. I believe Kareem will be here. Hopefully I'm not committing anything, but no, Kareem will be down here. We'll have CIFT representation and really good opportunity to unpack anything that we've talked about, do some networking with other brands, connect with the CIFT team, see our warehouse. We'll have um, kind of traditional warehouse of where we're holding product for our customers. We have our dock that is shipping out full truckloads. We have our cross dock that the consolidation network runs through that has a refrigerated portion and a dry portion. And we also have an e-com line that you'll be able to see. So kind of touching on all the things I've talked about here, and then any questions that you have, we would love to answer.
You guys can go ahead and use the Q&A tab if you have any questions. And as we are waiting for people to ask questions, little insight about FST. So they were one of the first companies that I toured when I joined CIFT, and I was walking inside the warehouse. I think Brandon was showing me one of your offices, and ironically, right when I walked in, I ran into the CEO, and right after that, like introduction to him, he said that normally doesn't happen because he's normally bouncing around different locations. But what was eye-opening was the way that you know, the of all the employees were palletizing this new concept product that was just ready to be deployed to area Costco's and Sam's Club, and I think it was like with Cliff Bars, and I'm like, what is that? They're like, oh, that's a newer product that they're about ready to announce. I'm like, they didn't announce it? Like, no, they said when they announce it, they want to have it deployed as soon as possible, so they're not waiting on. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
It's really cool. I think seeing like I love walking through our warehouses just to see what's happening. Yesterday when I was out walking the cross dock, I saw Valentine's and Easter candy getting ready to go out. So that's something that we always see is it's months ahead of time. But thinking about how the supply chain works, that's in our warehouse today. That's going to go out to probably a regional DC, which is going to process it, take it in. Then it's going to get bundled. Then it's going to go out direct to the store. And that could take any number of days or weeks for all that to happen. But like you said, they want to have that product ready to go so that when they need it, it can go out. I also heard in mid 2021 that there were a bunch of warehouses that were full of Christmas supplies that never delivered during Christmas holiday season of 2020. So that's fresh, I think, in a lot of people's minds. So especially for seasonal and holiday ordering, I know buyers have started ordering earlier because getting your Christmas shipment in January does not help you. And so I think that's also pushing some of it out sooner too.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I've seen that too. I think I was talking to a buyer, and he said that holiday shopping really starts in April, May, if there's any new concepts. The other one was, as I'm still waiting, I'll kind of answer my own questions, is now you touched on how do you know when you're ready to go to a 3PL. Is there like a sales volume per se on the e-commerce side? Like how many orders either per day or per week someone would be a good fit? I'm not talking about someone who obviously started recently and then got into all these platforms and they don't know how to manage. They're getting about 10 orders per week. I don't know if that's enough or does it have to be more or
Um, we always want to have that conversation. Without like, if you're asking for a number, I would say we'd like to see somebody moving like 50 to 100 orders a day. But we also, this gets into what I'm talking about with like how you see your brand growing and what historically has it looked like, but then also where do your projections go and what is both a moderate projection versus an aggressive projection. So, because maybe your ecom, I'm actually working through something right now where a brand has a pretty good retail presence and they've been established and somebody I've been working with for a few years, but ecom's has never been a priority for them with their company. So they have good history, good retail relationships, good brand awareness, but they just don't have ecom. Like that's a conversation that we're certainly willing to have and happy to have without that kind of ecom backing, just understanding where the company is with their growth and trajectory. Um, we want to have that understanding. But again, I'm not saying that like if you're not doing 50 orders a day or 100 orders a day that we're not interested. But there are also different providers that will focus on the smaller brands that maybe you're paying an hourly rate and they're running it 2 or 3 times a week and you don't have enough volume to truly run an ecom line every single day. So there are some partners that, and we can recommend some of those too, um, about who would be a more appropriate fit for where you are in your stage of business.
gotcha. Um, my colleague Natalie got some notes from the presentation, Craig, today, so I'm going to share that with everybody. And then obviously, Craig, I think we are going to share the presentation and the recording after today's event. And then I can get Craig's information to all of you guys if you have any questions for him. Um, is there any other questions? Come on,
Oh,
somebody
what a
has to
tease. I
have.
saw the note come up.
I know. Somebody should have a question. Um, I always say, in any entrepreneur or any idea, there's like three pillars. No, number one is idea. Number two is access to capital because you need money sometimes to get things started. And number three is distribution. So how is your product going to be sold? And logistic is part of the number three pillar. So, and the other question I had for you, Craig, was can you high level elaborate? I know some brands are on this call are working with retailers or a DSD program. So what is DSD? And then can you use a logistic company for a DSD or do they not kind of compare because they're usually for distributors?
Yeah, you can totally use the logistics company for that. Just understanding about, again, I think that just goes back into kind of the specialization and what the capabilities are. If direct to store deliveries are, that varies again, kind of depending on the retailer. If there, I know sometimes there's programs that there's an expectation that you physically like stock the shelf yourself, versus just delivering it into the store. It's just having an understanding of kind of what that expectation is with the retailer and then what that ask is for the 3PL. But yes, like I've done white glove delivery for any number of brands, but when I talk about like 3PL has, that's a pretty ubiquitous term. White glove delivery and direct store are also, it could mean any number of things from it needing white glove because there's not a traditional dock door and we have to go in through the front door. That's sometimes considered white glove because they have to carry it. all the way to like actually unpacking box by box and putting it on the shelf. So short answer, yes. Long answer, just have to have a greater understanding of what the ask is that you need your 3PL to do, and then understand what that looks like.
Okay. We do have a question that came in. What are the differences between a 3PL and a 4PL?
Was just talking about this earlier today. Third-party logistics um, is so I have a truck. You need me to move something. I'm going to call a third party that can find the truck. Fourth party logistics is kind of who's managing the 3PLs. So what we see, and primarily with some larger brands that outsource either their bids or their transportation management as a whole and are doing that through kind of who are those providers that are making up their network. When those providers are 3PLs, which have their own carrier relationships, somebody needs to manage those relationships, and that is typically referred to as a 4PL. um, that gets very kind of very blurred very quickly. But the 4PL is essentially there to manage the 3PLs. My wife jokes that we should start a 7PL now and get ahead of it. Because who's managing the 4PLs but a 5PL? That's a joke. But it is. It's a confusing part of the industry that for brands that want to run a bid consisting of different 3PLs, but don't necessarily have the resources or know-how internally to do so, then you contract another company, essentially a 4PL, to run that for you and manage those relationships. But then even within that, we see some brands that they want an external party, 4PL, to manage their bid, but then they want to manage the carriers. Some companies want to be completely separated from it and only communicate with their 4PL and have the 4PL manage the conversation with the 3PLs. So it's really a muddied question that I hope I haven't continued to muddy more. But it is something that we see. It also gets into transportation, man, anonymous attendee too. It also gets into like the idea of transportation management, where you're contracting somebody else, 3PL or 4PL potentially, that's just managing all of your freight. And then you're dealing with them and the conversations are pretty high level or can get super granular for how they're managing it. But the customer isn't necessarily managing those direct carrier relationships. That's happening through a third or fourth party.
Um, since you mentioned 3PL and 4PL, does this mean when somebody has that, does that mean that someone could have a distributor and a 3PL and they're all kind of managing everything?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's distributors that have their own 3PLs. Again, 3PL, extremely ubiquitous term. So in what part? Like if there's a distributor that also has their own fleet and also has a brokerage, then they are both a service provider, a 3PL, and a direct carrier. But when you see brands that do get into that, it's just about creating multiple revenue streams. And how do they, I said this earlier, it's about control and how do they maintain as much control as possible. So when you're a brand and thinking about, do I want my distributor, like how is my distributor managing these moves? Not just selling my product, but managing the moves. Two very different things. But then also like, can I sell my own product and have them just move it? Or if I'm selling my own product and I have a good understanding of what my minimum orders are, then I should be going to a 3PL myself, essentially.
Yeah. And then I guess towards unless if there's a question going to come in, what do you see in the next 3 to 5 years of how 3PL advancements will grow? Do you think social media platforms will be more integrated with 3PL companies to kind of bolster the e-commerce side of things, or will there be a little bit more automation um, for data to better understand, like answer that question when when you need to be ready for 3PL? And then also, last question, what are platforms a brand can use to get more data to answer some of the pinpoints that that you mentioned to ask yourself?
Well, each retailer is going to offer their data in a little bit different way. Some of the largest retailers do have portals and links um, that you kind of manage that data on your own. So I would say like your transportation partners should be able to give you some degree of data with how frequently they're delivering, and then you want to compare how that data compares to your customers' data. Um, Walmart understanding how to read the data is paramount. Walmart has three companies that they employ apart from their own team that goes through their data to find ways to short pay and find their vendors. And 1% of Walmart's budget is made up through these fines and fees. That's got to be a massive number. 1% of Walmart's budget. So just to think about like how many millions of dollars they're bringing in every year through short pays. Um, Understanding that data and how to get it that is a more difficult question because it's not going to be in one source. You need to know how you like what you think you're doing, what they think you're doing, and then try to find what's actually happening as much as possible. Hopefully, the data that you get from your transportation provider is accurate as far as delivery to the day and to the appointment. But your transportation provider can help you with OTIF, on time in full. They can help you with on time. In full is going to be more about your production timelines and the health of your supply chain and inventory and planning. So also when I talk about understanding that data, why are you getting fined? Where are you getting fined? And then how do you fix that? Is it just as simple as delivering on time? What are our lead times? Um, when are we asking the warehouse to pull the order? Are they truckloads? If they're truckloads in there late, why? If they're LTLs in there late, also why, but slightly more, what carriers are we using? How are they delivering? When are we picking up? Again, what's the lead time? It's crucial to understanding what that data means. But again, every retailer is going to house their own data, and it's your data too. So it's important to understand that like you have access to this and need to get that data. Again, kind of what I said earlier, even if you don't know what to do with it right now, just having it, holding it, keeping it so that when the time comes that you do need to employ that, you've got it ready. Um, you asked another question in there about kind of what to do with it, I think as well. Again, it just goes back to understanding what that is, and when you don't, being unafraid to go ask the questions. A lot of people think that they can't press on their buyer, especially if it's a big company, that they can't go back to their buyer with questions and pushback. You definitely can. And again, having a data-backed approach is going to help tremendously to shorten that interaction, minimize the back and forth on the email chain, but also probably get some more desirable results for you.
Yeah. Another question came in. What are some key tips to evaluating my current 3PL versus possibly looking elsewhere for supply chain support?
Yeah. Um, Kind of some of the things that I said earlier, like are they doing what you want them to do? I asked the question like, what do you wish you had the capability to do that you can't, or why are you not doing it? Um, Kind of broad strokes, like the smell test. Like, does not something not feel right, something not smell right? Like, start asking the questions. I am a big believer that you should regularly be checking on your service providers and kind of looking at having some conversations with their competition just to see what the other people are saying. I say that as a service provider. Uh, like I genuinely think understanding the value prop that your current relationship is offering, and do you feel like that is delivering for you? I had somebody tell me recently that their service provider, their 3PL, um, my customer was closed, or my relationship was closed on Veterans Day last week, and they had a carrier. They asked like, carriers closed on Veterans Day, and they said, okay, what do we do if there's an issue? And the carrier said, it's just one day. Boy, is that the wrong answer. So like it's small things like that to me is like immediately setting off alarm bells that like if that's the feeling, like it's just one day, what like, oh man, that snowballs so much is to it's just one order. It's just this. Like I can't have my service provider deciding what's important and what's not. Like that's something that I have to decide as the brand. So if my service provider isn't kind of living the values that I need them to, I want to look at what else is out there. Um, from a transportation perspective, if you're not delivering on time, if you're not getting good communication, if your rates are inconsistent and you don't understand why, those are all things that I think, should be driving you to ask some of those questions. Do you not like the person you're working with? You should like your business partners. Do you not feel like it's a trustworthy and honest relationship? Like I really hope that you feel that they're pointing you in the right direction. From an e-commerce perspective, are you getting what you're paying for? Are they making mistakes? Are they packing orders as quickly as they said they would? Are they fulfilling them as quickly as they said they would? In general, regardless of what service line you're offering, is what you're paying, how closely does what you're paying align with what you're expecting to be paying? Are you getting just hammered on the back end with accessorial charges and extra charges that you were not anticipating and feeling like that really good deal that you signed, you're actually kind of getting nickel and dimed on the back end? Like all of these things to me would make me want to at least have some conversations with some other service providers. And I'm not saying that if after this you pick up and call me that like we're going to be 100% perfect all the time, but I want you to understand why there's an issue and are they being responsive and having that conversation with you and being like a true, honest, and transparent partner? That's what I want to look for if I'm looking for a 3PL.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Craig. I appreciate taking the time to speak with us and all of you that attended today. The next steps will be is I will be sending Craig's info over to you guys as well as this recording and his presentation. It might take a day due to towards the end of the day today to send something to you guys. But if you guys have any other questions, feel free to contact Craig or myself or both of us. Even if you guys want to just say hi, we can say hello back and kind of go from there. Craig, again, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. I really hope that we answered your questions and kind of gave you a better inside look, the difference between a distributor and a logistics, and you don't have a headache anymore by just thinking of that. So appreciate all of you guys. And Craig, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you everybody who joined. Wasn't sure when Kareem told me how long we had this booked for. Wasn't sure that we were going to fill the time. But here we are, 83 minutes later. We got there, and hopefully everybody's still awake. And really, truthfully, we'd love to have you come down and see our facility, answer any questions. If that day doesn't work for you, but you want to come down, please reach out. We'll also have some light refreshments.
Yeah. You already got me
But
there.
no, thank you so much, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful and safe rest of your day and holiday season. And I hope to see you in a couple weeks.
Awesome. Well, see you guys. Thank you, Craig.